Colossus. He's got such a larger force. His opponent who's been completely unmacroing this entire game. His opponent is floating 9,000 minerals right there. He's down to 7,000, 8,000 as we speak, but he's at 50 at 100, and ladies and gentlemen, 8,000 minerals is 80 zealots. Zealots are 2 food, so that's 160 food. If you spent all of his minerals immediately, if you had the capacity to do so, he would be well over the food cap, and he would be well in good shape to hold off this attack. So we can see that samcobra is only at 3,000 minerals, so he's winning the game just by virtue of being able to spend his minerals better. And Storm is not enough on its own to finish off this many Marines, this many Marauders, especially with medevac support. He had a couple of Colossi thrown in there along with a Storm. He probably would have done much better. These voidrays are going to be able to do a little bit of damage to these Marauders, as samcobra has 0 anti-air mixed in with his army, but 2 voidrays is going to be nowhere near enough to take on this many Marauders before samcobra does a massive amount of damage to Nemac's infrastructure. We can see more of these Marauders getting taken down, and these voidrays being coupled with Storm is just so much more effective than Storm on its own. Storm does a lot of damage, but again, it's just really a support for your army. Support for the real damage dealing capability, unless you've got enough sentries just to completely surround the guy so he can't move out of it, and so that you can just chain Storm in there. I believe you needed to have 14 High Templars in order to perma-storm in StarCraft 1. I'm really curious what the number in StarCraft 2 is, but it's probably the same thing. I mean, energy regeneration is probably really similar, but if you just have a warp prism, you can just always warp in another Templar. Just throw off some gas, get a Storm, especially with that upgrade. We can see that nemac has been doing an amazing job of keeping his gas low, just because gas is so much easier to spend in the form of High Templars and all of these Colossi. But again, I would just love to see him throw down a bunch of warp gates and then just a bunch of zealots, just macro up a bunch of zealots. Especially because he already has that charge research. samcobra is just floating around with the Banshee, not getting any kills. He could completely take out nemac's base right here. Nemac has very little anti-air, except for those 5 void rays. And void rays aren't really the fastest thing in the world, but it does look like the Banshee's just going to sit there for scouting purposes. And Nemac is nearly mined out of his gold. A little bit of an uneven mining pattern there. He's got 600 minerals in those, and 1129 in that patch. I'm kind of curious how that managed to happen. He probably undersaturated it completely, is my guess. Thor coming up. It has came up before samcobra. It looks like samcobra is really diversifying. He's also got 2 nukes in his arsenal, and I would love to see some offensive nukes and just not nuking a dead expansion when his opponent is floating so many minerals. Some nukes on production, some nukes on army would be great. nemac is he's not producing anything at all. This is really what's costing him the game, nemac, if you were watching this replay. I don't think you will be, but on the off chance that you're watching this replay, just look at the resources you're floating. If you'd creaked out, like, 10 gateways, and just pumped zealots, pumped stalkers, pumped anything, gotten up another base just so that you could take advantage of those gas, done anything so that you could spend your resources better, so that you could get right up to a decent number of food, that would have put you right back in the game and kept you very safe from these large Marine, Marauder, Raven tank blobs. Ravens do not do very well against Zealots. Even though Zealots have no anti-air, Raven's point defense drone is now effective on Zealots' arm, laser, lightsaber things. Zealots are like Darth Maul. He snapped his lightsaber in half and then duct taped one half to either of his wrists and didn't die to Qui-Gon. I'm sorry if I spoiled the movie for anybody. Probably should have put a spoiler tag in front of that so I didn't ruin anybody's day. Also, since I'm on the subject, I remember way back when episode 2 came out, I went and I saw it in theaters, and then I watched Star Wars at home, and I nearly cried when Obi-Wan died, and I told people about it, and they're like, "Oh my god, why did you tell me that?" And I was like, dude, the movie came out in 1970. So I guess that's really my thing. Episode 1 came out several years ago. I was so young. I actually don't want to remember exactly how young that was. That makes me feel incredibly old. samcobra coming up and knocking out more expansions of nemacs. But again, nemac is floating a billion resources. Knocking out expansions is not going to hurt him very much at this point in the game. And with these ravens, he is going to be able to take down that observer of nemac. Nemac is not producing at all. I've had the production tab up. I'm sure you guys have been watching it more carefully than I have while I've been ranting about Star Wars and Obi-Wan dying. But we can see that samcobra is pumping out a small number of units. Not as many as he could be, especially given this income, and nemac is just doing nothing. Nemac is just sitting back and moving around with his army. Produce things. Warp gates are already hotkeyed for you. you can just hit W and then click wherever you have a pylon and spend your minerals. And it doesn't matter if those zealots die right away. It's not good to be sitting at 8,500 minerals ever. I'm really beating this point to death. If we pop on over to the Resources tab, we can see that samcobra is ahead a good 110 food. So he can just really waltz into his opponent's base and completely deal with him at any point. I guess he should pump like Hellions. He probably has a reactor in a factory somewhere. And he should pump at Hellions so that he can spend minerals a little bit faster. I cannot find this so-called factory with this so-called reactor, so it's probably a myth, and I'm just getting it wrong. That's what he should be doing, though. So we're just going to pretend that he is. And he's still got a bunch of tanks just sitting around on these ledge, and I know those tanks proved their worth last time, and they're about to prove their worth again, but I would really love to see him playing a bit more offensively when we do see Nuke going down. Where is this Nuke? Offensive Nuke, I guess, just trying to keep his opponent from retreating. That's not really going to do any good, as the entirety of Nemac's forces are going to get wiped out. And the store is actually going to go down to all these voidrays. Nuke's going to go down without doing any damage. Samcobra not dealing with his voidrays very well. He's got about 3 marines. These are going to go down incredibly fast to these laser-spewing death machines, just because there's so few of them. And we finally do see a couple of auto turrets coming down for these ravens. A little bit of anti-air, but they're coming down too few, too late. I would love to have seen these auto turrets come up when the Thors and when these marines are still alive. It does look like nemac can be able to do a whole bunch of damage with these void rays, but again, he is behind 100 food. And he could just flip the tables if he was able to magically spend all 9,000 of his minerals instantly. We do have another nuke coming down on these robotics facilities for nemac. Nemac is not going to be able to produce anything. Nemac's not choosing not to produce anything. I guess he's microing his void rays. Those void rays are getting called back to deal with these marauders and these ravens. I would prefer to see him getting into a base training situation, and this pylon does go down. These robotics facilities will no longer be able to be used to produce, and even though he has void rays and his opponent has no anti-air, nemac is going to GG out. Very interesting game. Again, I would have definitely liked to have seen both players just macro a little bit more, just use mules a bit more, just spend money a bit more, especially in nemac's case, but also in samc's case. But yeah, very, very long game, I wouldn't really call it an even game. Nemac was building the hard counter to what samcobra was building all game, but he wasn't building anywhere near enough of it. Samcobra was able to deal with the hard counter just because he was ahead so much food, and we do see that Nemac has left. I'm just going to speed this up and go to the end. But yeah, definitely a cool game in that very, very much of the map was used. We got to see bases here, we get to see bases here, we get to see bases here, we get to see bases here, here, and here. I'm disappointed that Nemac never expanded here. Nemac did expand here, and also here. I don't think I mentioned that when I was going around saying here everywhere. And you do see the auto turrets aren't going to be able to finish off the last of Nemac's buildings, and samcobra is finally going to be able to discover this gold. So, that was Rainbows here, giving you another exciting game between some lower and mid-level players. And now that I say that, both players are going to be like, dude, I'm first plat. So, if you are, please message me, and please yell at me, and if I can get better, please leave helpful comments. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you again soon with more of these video commentaries coming out. I'm probably going to look around and start doing a bunch more pro games. I'm just going to follow around the little one and just cast all of his replays. That's what I'm probably going to do. Just e-stalk him and go through a couple of Team Liquid threads and just find as many good replays between higher level plat players as I can. And keep doing these too, just because they're informative for everybody. So, Rainbows, signing out.